Right, I could certainly keep tweaking and playing around with materials and various other things within this infinitely, but I'm going to leave all of this for now because what I want to focus on is adding or making the landscape that's going to fit in here. Now, obviously, again, because we're cloning a small section of this, I can't create a landscape which is just relative to that small section and clone it, because obviously the landscape will just repeat over and over again, which is not what I want to do. You can get away with that for these elements, of course, but not for that. So I basically need to create a piece of landscape that's going to go disappear from just out of our view here somewhere, and probably just end somewhere underneath the end of this arch here. At which point I can duplicate it to probably just make a copy of it to cover the bit in the distance there. But I want this to be a unique sort of landscape all the way down with varying features throughout, including sort of rocky bits of terrain and possibly sort of a beach area, maybe even a golf course. I just want to make it a bit like this is a unique area. So the way I have looked at doing that, I'll go back to the main scene, is by using a flat plane, which I will then bend to fit this space, because we've only got a short segment here which curves, and even if I was to duplicate that and have the curve all the way up here, it's going to be a little bit tricky to model this terrain if it's so curved. So I think it'll be a lot easier just to work on a flat plane and then deform it within our scene. So I'm going to set that up. I need to work out the distance I've got to cover. So I'm going to create a plane and also a bend. Now these are currently out of view because I'm in the clone camera view, which is way down from the baseline. So I'm just going to zip back to edit cam and have a look at what we got here. And I'm going to extend the plane. Let's open this up. There we go. I'm going to make the width of it, having worked this out already, I'm just going to go straight to it. I'm going to make the width of it 10. And I'm going to go for the moment of making this 60. Actually, I'm going the wrong way there. That should be 10 that way, 60 that way. And I'm going to give it appropriate divisions of polygons. So it's fine being 20 across the narrow width, but obviously I need that to be relative to this. So this should be 120. So we get square polys all the way. The reason I need to do that is that I'm actually going to be sculpting this. I'm going to use the inbuilt sculpting tools to create some landscape elements. Make it look a bit more realistic, hopefully. In the past, I would have just used like a material with diffusion, with displacement in it, and use the randomization of that. But again, because I want this to be a bit more specific, then sculpting it seems the most sensible choice. Right, the bend deformer. That needs to be applied underneath the plane. And we're not really going to know what the details of that are until we get down there. But I think before I even get down to that level, I'm going to move the plane along from the center point and put the bend back in. Right, I'm going to move all this down. When I come to actually model the landscape, then I should be, using this in standard X, Y, and Z 0 coordinates. But to work this out, I'm going to do this down at the cloner level. So let's go into Habitat Cam. Yeah, it's going to be down here somewhere. Right, so in terms of width, I'll work that out right to begin with. 10 is correct. In terms of the length, that's what we'll have to work out. We need to put the deformer on so we can see how this might look. Going to keep the y-axis length checked. And try. Well, that's going the wrong way. Let's do it the other way. Let's do -1. That's not enough. So let's do -2. Okay, let's go for it. -5. This should be on unlimited. Right, what I want to make sure is that that bend is in the center of our segment. Which is, that's why I'm bending the wrong way, apart from everything else. But that is dead center at the moment by the looks of it. 90. There we go. Okay, now that makes more sense. So let's put that back down to, say, -2. You can see that's bending far too severely for the space. Excuse me, -1, that seems to be, it's closer. But let's just have a quick look inside the view. I'm going to turn off the lines, just get a quick shading, right, so I can see my plane, how far it goes. So I need to extend that to try 80. Let's just alter the bend a little bit so we can see what that's doing. Maybe -1.5. That's almost out of view. I want to give that a bit more, I think. Make it all the way to 100. Yeah. Bend wise, as you can see, that's too severe there by the way it's going up there. Let's do -1.2 and have a look at the side. I may need to rotate the bend a little bit, I think. So let's just leave that where it is for now. What I'm going to need to do is rotate the plane. Let's try 1.7 -1.1. Let's have a look at that. Let's lower it all down as well. I want to move this. Yeah, in fact, let's just move that down. There we go. So we're much closer to that line. Let's have a look. It starts to go in a little bit there. Let's try it alter the rotation. 0.6. Looks pretty close. It starts to ascend again a little bit. 0.65 maybe. Go the other way. 0.68. Again, subtle increments on this level. Probably close enough, but that looks to be pretty much parallel to me. Right, let's just make sure that bend is in the middle. The reason I've got the bend in the middle of this section is because obviously that's the arc that we've defined, and it's just simply this bit, you know, over to about here. So since that's our starting point, it makes sense to make our bend center, you know, directly in the middle of that section as well. Because I'll just do this. If I move the bend now any further along, you see how that alters the arc and where the center of that arc is. So I do want the landscape to extend backwards a bit, and that seems to be the best way of placing it. Let me just undo this. Got distracted there. Right, there we go. We're not dead center. Let's just go. Yes, we are. Yeah, seems to be fine. Right, I'm going to lower that down a little bit. I should only go too low because I'm going to put some water in that. Anyway, it's irrelevant. I just need to make sure that I've got enough landscape for what I need. Right, so currently I'm going to hold down the 7 key, and that's going to allow me to move the plane without moving the position of the bend. This is on a Mac. On a PC, it may be a different key. I'm not entirely sure, but hold down 7, and this moves that without moving the bend. So that obviously that just goes all the way around the arc there. So I need this to be. I can hide any joins just behind the top of the arch. So I think that's about correct. Let's go to the cam. Go back a bit. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. Even if I need to, if I find that I need to extend this more, I can always just stretch it a little bit. It's only going to make a minor difference. And that seems to be enough landscape for what we need. Right, so I'm going to save this. And I'm going to take this object, the plane and the bend. I'm going to copy it and create a new scene file. Paste it in. And I'm just going to zero this out. Well, what's happened to our bend there? Right. Well, in actual fact, I can get rid of the bend because I don't need that on this one. Okay, so we've got our little strip of landscape. It's quite a long strip of landscape, really. What I need to do is set this up for sculpting. What I'm going to do quickly is refer back to my render and try and work out what I want to see along the length of this. So, picture viewer. Let's make this fit the view. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to put some hilly areas in here and put some rocky bits on them as well, make it a bit more natural environment, and have this stream or river sort of snaking down. But I'm thinking about putting some swimming pool areas in as well, and they will probably be attached to the walls, made from the same material but sort of arc shaped or something. So they'll be added afterwards, really, after the landscape. But I'm going to sort of vary the terrain, make it sort of hilly and sort of go down to lower areas with some plains here. And what I need to work out is whether I can sort of put a beachy side here, and equally whether I'm going to put maybe a golf course in this sort of area. I may well commandeer a texture from a previous job of a golf course and mix it in. But I'm going to go back to my scene file, and I'm going to press Control Tab to bring this window back to size. Switch my display to quick shading lines. Check that I've got the right amount of polygons. No, I need that to be 200 so that they're square. And I'm going to make that editable. Either hit the button here or press C on the keyboard. And now's a good time to switch from the your layout to from training, which is what I've set up, to sculpt. And that just brings all the sculpt tools into play. Now, something else that might be helpful actually while we're doing this is to have a gauge of the wall height in the main document. So let's just go into there and have a look at our wall. I'm just going to flip this back to training again. Turn the cloner off. Symmetry, and zip to edit cam. Which is no longer where we need it. Now I get that back to the main structure. And habitat section is the model I want. I just want to get an idea of the size of these polygons. So that is 1.89 tall up to the train. So 1.89. Let's say 1.9 and go back to the other document. And I'm just going to add in and make a copy of the plane. And I'm going to make that 1.89. 1.9 we said, didn't we? It can say the same length, obviously, and I'm just going to move that over to the edge. Rotate it around 90 degrees. Snip out to front view. Actually, probably right. So, oops. It's off to the side. So I just need to lift that up and move it over. There we go. And I can just get a symmetry object, put that inside it, and set the symmetry on that to XY. There we go. That gives me an idea basically when I'm lifting my hills that I don't go over that point. So equally I'm going to put X-ray tab on there. Okay, I'm going to save this so that I've got a right, so let's go back to the sculpt layout. I'm just going to click on this plane here and do some subdivides. Right, I'm just going to drop back to level 1 a minute and start doing the sculpt. What I really want to do is probably the first thing actually is to put sort of a river form in that snakes down. As I said before, maybe make an area which is sort of bigger, a bit more of a lake-like or whatever. I'm going to vary the width of it anyway. I don't want it to be too even. And then I can start sculpting hills around that. So I will put that up to the higher mesh and get a suitable tool. So I'm going to go with Inflate, I think. Let's just try that. Let's just scale it down. I'm using the bracket tools, bracket keys, which is the same as in Photoshop, to scale the size up and down of the brush. And if I hold down Command, then it inverts the action. So I'll just undo that. This is just dragging the brush along the surface. And holding down Command inverts, so it sort of cuts into it. So that probably will be a perfect tool for creating a river. And I'll tell you what will make this easier as well is if I just go back a couple of steps. So I'm going to use the Command Z command to take us back to the point where we were not subdivided. I'm just going to duplicate this one. Just going to duplicate this one. Call it water. And quickly create a new material. It's a lot easier if I just do it in this one for now. New material. I'm just going to colour that dark. I'll do drag that onto the water and just move it down a fraction. There we go. Just do it back to sculpt. Make sure we've got the right one selected. We have. Subdivide a couple of times. And again, use the Inflate tool. And I think I'll start with doing it fairly. Then let's see what it looks like. We're going to make it smaller than that. Let's go for 5. Remember to hold down Command to invert it. Pressure is 20. I might up that to 30. Steady stroke might be useful. That basically just smooths out your. You can see that it's trailing the like a line behind it to try and make it smoother. It's the same as in ZBrush, if you're familiar with that. The lazy mouse, I think it's called in there. Right, so I'm going to start at the center. Holding down Command. Again. You see the advantage of having the dark material in there. Obviously just gives us an instant water surface to reference, which is why I did that. Let's have a look. In fact, we don't need to see these polys, so let's just turn these off. Makes things a bit cleaner. That's quite nice. Got quite a nice snakiness to it. I'm just debating whether I should have it as wide as that now. On the scale of the landscape. No, let's undo it. Go back to say 3. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I think that thickness is probably okay for the average. I'll do it from this viewpoint. Down Command. Not really snaky enough. Okay, let's work out. Let's see if we can do it from above. That'd be easier. Let's go to a plan view. Switch that to quick shading. Let's try that. Holding down Command. Okay, so look at that from this viewpoint. Yeah, that's probably okay. I'm going to edit that and add a few areas where it's thicker anyway, so maybe we create a little island area here. Oops. What's going on with that? Doesn't like to go over those again. Okay. Just thicken that area there. inflate. I'll lower the size of that down a bit, 20. That's to say 4. I'm going to turn off the steady stroke. And this area up here, I'm going to add a little bit more. Let's reduce that down to 3 again. Hold down Command. Just trying to create little islands. And equally I'm going to widen this. So that it has a bit more of a natural feel to it. Rivers rarely run in a complete equal parallel width all the way down. I'm just going to go to my smooth tool, smooth it out a bit. Inflate. Trim some off this one here. Smooth it out again. There we go. Smooth this. Okay. I think that'll probably suffice for now. I can always tweak that later. But what I will do is lower that water plane down just a fraction more. Let's make that 5. That's it, so it doesn't keep messing with our editor view. Let's go all the way down to 1. That's fine. Okay, I'm going to put some hills and more mountainous bits in. So go back to sculpting. I think I'm going to move the, actually select that again, sculpting, and I'm going to knock that division down to 1 while I do this. Let me just see what that looks like. Brush bigger. Yeah, that's probably fine for creating hills. So I'll put some in here. What would help actually as well if I got rid of the grid that's in my way. Let's go to, I need a mode, attributes, mode, view settings, filter, turn the grid off. There we go. Keep zipping backwards and forwards between this and the smooth. Whatever tool you're using in smooth, rather. do this in a lower setting altogether, actually. Right, let's go back to the original plan and add some detail. So you'd think you'd be able to get to it from stamp, but it doesn't seem to be accessible when I've tried before. So whereas in stencil preset, yeah, there's nothing there. It is in fact to be found in the brush preset. I don't know why it's not in the stencil or stamp locations, but certainly I can get it to it from here. So we've got all these presets of various textures, alphas, masks, as it were. What I've found in the past that's quite useful to work with is the stone or rock textures, and even some of the wall ones are good. Let's have a look. Stone, here we go. Let's try that one. Let's just reduce it down in scale. Just going to apply it now, see what it looks like. Okay, it's probably a little bit severe. Just go down in scale. Right, let's just add another level of subdivision. Okay, that's good, but it's pretty strong. So let's try that at 75%. Scale it up. We don't even need that much. That's more what I'm after, just something that breaks up the ground a little bit. Gives a bit more character to the hills. Certainly good on the hilly areas to add a bit more sort of roughness to the terrain. And it's equally good when it gets down to the water's edge because it breaks it up. So I'm just going to use this in various places. Up the scale and just go straight across the map. Again, I'm trying to keep the lower regions probably a little bit more smooth and flat plane like. So I should probably focus it more on the upper mountainous or hilly areas. Let's try another one. That's very aggressive. It's great for creating large sort of rifts and things. So I'm going to just go back out, reduce the scale of that down, certainly knock the strength of it down. Just see what that looks like when I do that. I just want to break up some of the water. I don't want to break it up that severely. If I do this one there. It's probably a little bit too severe for this scale of landscape, really. Right, well I think that's probably sufficient for what I need at this point. I've saved the file. In fact, I'll just resave that. Named it Terrain Sculpt so I can refer back to it. But what I'm going to do now is bake out the sculpt onto a lower poly version of the mesh. So we just put the shading lines on. That's the kind of finished polygon count, which is still not terribly high. But what I probably need it to do, rather than go from 0, is probably at least go from stage 1, if not 2. Although that's going to be kind of a dense mesh in the scene. Let me just look at. Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe doing it at stage 2, actually, level 2. Although I can still see the river's edge. It's important that I can see these things when I'm selecting areas to add trees and such like. And on 2, that's more defined. So I've just seen something I want to deal with very quickly. Just want to smooth that out there. That was it, really. Level 1 or level 2? What shall I do? Smooth that some now. Press start. Just gonna make that area a little bit deeper. Oh, not that deep. Let's do it with Inflate. There we go. Okay, let's knock that back. Scale that down. That's better. I can smooth that out a little bit. Okay. I think purely so that it's mind you, I can do that texture. No, I'm going to do it at level 1. That's fine. Decisions. Right. Okay. So that is fine. I can lift that all the way to the top. I can turn down or turn off the display of the mesh, and I can click on Bake Sculpt Objects. So here I just need to put the name. There we go. / in and call this Terrain Sculpt. Actually, it'd be more accurate to call it Disp for displacement. Now, I want to be able to paint onto this texture the full length at a 1:1 kind of ratio. So there's no point me doing it at 8,000 square because that'll squash it right up. And then when I want to paint on it, all the painting will get stretched back out when it's put back onto the object. So I'm going to do this in real world terms, and I'm going to use, how big dare I go? I'm going to do it 24:8 in the height and 10 times that in the width, so therefore I get a full accurate ratio texture displacement, and then I can equally paint the color channel the same way, which is what I really need. I don't want it squashed up. Options, I think I just want displacement. I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a normal as well. And I want to bake from level 1. Okay. Everything else I think can stay as it is. Okay, bake. This doesn't usually take too long. There we go. That's completed. Now that's baked that in the RGB XYZ object form. I think I'm going to do another copy of it, but doing it in the standard intensity or intensity centered grayscale one that I'm used to, just in case I change my mind, because I may want to lay some other displacement over it, or mix it, blend it in. So I'm just going back here to give this another name, terrain displacement 2, and oh, I didn't mean to do that just yet. Let's just stop that. Yes. Let's go back to settings and change that one to intensity. That's fine as well. I don't really need to preview it, but yeah, okay, that's going to be correct. That's fine. Right, options, displacement normal, that's fine. Baking is just the same, so let's just do that one again. The reason I'm doing a grayscale one as well, which is the standard sort of displacement that most of us work with, I think, is, as I say, if I decide that I want to layer any gradients over it or any noise or anything else that all work in that grayscale format, then at least I can bunch them together in a layer in a material. Whereas if it's in RGB, then that's a little bit more tricky. I'm not used to working in that space. And plus, if you want to edit the image in any way, then it's a lot easier to work with a grayscale image. There we go. Okay, so it's created 2 versions of that. Let's just have a quick look in there. So we've got displacement using RGB. And that's using intensity, so that's great. Both versions, perfect. I only need one of these actually, because I better take them both because actually it's got the correct height ratio in there. So I'm going to save this again. I'm going to keep it all together in one file. I'm going to keep the live sculpt version, and I'm going to take the water as well. Let's just turn that one off and turn one of these off. Do a quick render. Just want to see the height of the water. Make sure it's okay. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to take these together. I'm going to group them. Alt-G to group. And then call this colony terrain. And I guess I should rename these. Let's just call this one RGB disp. And then we'll call this one grey disp. Okay, so I can copy this and paste this into the colony scene. We just need to find where that's placed. That I suspect is obviously gone high. Yes, because that's right. So what I need to do is lower this terrain down to roughly where the other one is. And let's sort out that bend deformer width, which is excessive. Oh. There we go, it's that one. That down to 0.2 or something. Even 0.1. Even 0.05. There you go. That's a bit more in relation to the actual object. And I'm just going to move this roughly to the same sort of position as the where it came from, the original plane. And lower it a little bit. In fact, let's look at that. The height of that is that. So let's enforce that onto there. It's just a fraction out. And we need to put the bend inside this group here. Perfect. I don't think we'll need that plane again, but I won't get rid of it. I'll just turn it off, put it in here, put it at the bottom of the group. And there is our terrain in the right place by the looks of it. Right, let's turn everything on. I'm just going to save that and put our symmetry objects on and our cloner, which will bring the colony back down here, and get a habitat cam. Wow, there you go. There's our landscape. Let's just change our layout back to training so we get the right viewpoint. Right, I'm just going to quickly grab this and just render the active object, just to make sure it's looking correct. Yeah, it looks like it is. Okay, cool. Right, so I'm going to go with I'm going to turn the RGB version off. I'm going to go with this. I think this is probably what I'm going to be using. So I want to go to that material and at least add some color into it. Let's see, it's the right one, isn't it? Yeah. Right, let's just put some green in there. Look it down. Knock the saturation down. Go a little bit towards yellow. And this is just a quick fix really. I'm just putting on some noise just to break it up a little bit. I want that to be wavy turbulence, I find is the best. And I'm just going to my render settings, turn off level illumination and ambient occlusion, physical, and put that up to 20, speed it up a little. And I'm just going to do a quick render to screen without everything on, just so I can see what this looks like in the context of the colony space. Well, that looks alright, looks interesting, but without radiosity it's a little bit, or global illumination, it's a little bit dull, so I'm going to put that on, knock that down to 8, and let's just give that a render. The first thing I'll do before I go any further, let's just put some material, or tweak that water material for a start. I don't really need that to have any colour, so we can turn that off. We need it to be reflective. We need to remove that one, add, let's go for the GGX. Let's use this, go for water, and add a little bit of bump, noise. I'm going to go for probably that. Scale down to maybe 5. Only a very low height too. And yeah, we could do some transparency as well. We'll probably have to come back and tweak this further, but I won't have any colour in that. I'm going to put a refraction of water in there, which is 1.33, and I'm going to use the absorption colour thing, but I know from experience that that's going to need to be very low, so I'm going to put that down to say 0.3 and put a fairly dark greeny blue in there, maybe a little bit more towards blue. I don't like it too saturated, so okay, I'll go with that. Maybe too dark. What I'm trying to get here, the purpose of doing this on the transparency is using the absorption color, is you get the effect where water, as it touches, or as it touches the edge of something, it falls off. Now, in fact, that's not necessarily going to work on here because I've just got it on a plane. And typically it needs to be, I think it needs to be a volume, so I'll need to extrude the water plane into to make it sort of a cube, a rectangle, and then this should work. So in fact I'll do that now rather than waiting. So I'm just going to turn off, or make that invisible, my displacement terrain, and grab the water one and select all, and select D to extrude, and I want to keep create caps on, so I'm going to extrude downwards leaving a surface, so I'm just going to flip out to the side. To see what we're doing. Yeah, I would imagine that's deep enough. Let's just go to there. Right, what we'll need to do then is select all of these and reverse the normals, because they'll have been inverted. There we go. That's that, and we can turn that back on again. And let's just do a render as is. I should do it to picture viewer. Let's save the scene again. Make sure the output size is correct. Okay. Actually, I'm just going to stop that very quickly. Just want to tweak something I noticed before, and that's the diffusion on the terrain. I want to lower the volume of that down and equally scale it up. I go to 300%. Right, now we'll render. Right, the reason I stopped that mid-flow or mid-render is because there's obviously an issue with the water here. I think what it is the transparency, the absorption distance is set way too high. So what we're seeing here, this sort of grey area, let's go to 200%. That's the floor of this trench here. So I think that the box that I've created for the water is intersecting that halfway. So I need to lower the floor. So I need to go back into the main view and turn off the cloner and the symmetry object, so the major symmetry object, and go to my edit cam, which is nowhere near it anymore. So I'm just going to go down to here and press O to zoom me into that particular object, and well, it's handy they're selected. So what's happening is the rectangular, the box that I've created for the water is intersecting the floor of the trench here. So I need to lower that floor, and that should sort that out. So I need to turn off my cloner, turn off symmetry, and go to my edit cam. That's already selected, and lower this down out of view. Hopefully it shouldn't need to go any lower than that, but I'll just put it there. And I will turn that back on again. Symmetry, habitat cam, and it will catch up. And in fact, just to make sure this is so I can sort out the water absorption, I'm just going to create another camera. Make that my active one and move myself down to the terrain floor. Let's just rotate my camera downwards a little bit. Quickly go into my render settings, turn off global and ambient occlusion, and no, not that. And then I'll use the, I'll just save it actually, use the interactive render region to put that over here. And have a look and see what our water looks like. I'm just going to lower the settings of that right down. I suspect this is going to be almost completely transparent. Yeah, it's nowhere near. So I'm going to reduce that down to 0.0. Let's say, well, let's do 0.03. Let's get a tenth of the value. That's better. That is doing what I need it to do. Let me just zoom and show that to you. This absorption color should work more correctly now because it's going to trail off towards the edges. If I can frame the water correctly. So it should fade out or fade the transparency as it gets closer to the edge of the bank, which is what we want to do. There we go. Just going to try 0.05. Yeah, it's a little bit better, I think. We're doing making this a bit lighter. Let's just check on that. Let's go with this. Close that down. Switch back to the main habitat cam. Go back to our render settings, activate global illumination, ambient occlusion, and I'm going to set this up to do this at a little better quality so we can see the detail more. So I'm going to go into physical and change this to 8. And I'm also going to up the size. Let's make this to 600. Global illumination, we'll put that at 16. That should be fine. I'm going to do another save and render this to picture viewer.